Hi, this is Shawanda Ivory, and this is my Coaching a Teacher professional development. I had the pleasure of coaching Miss Lipscomb, a first year, first grade teacher on my campus. I enjoyed working with her and her students, and this was a very pleasurable experience. So the centered, student-centered coaching is about identifying specific targets for students that are rooted in the standards and curriculum and working collaboratively to ensure that the targets are met, rather than focusing on how teachers feel or on the acquisition of a few simple skills. We measure our impact based on student learning. So the coaching experience was student-centered coaching by Diane Sweeney. And we focused on a goal for the students and we worked towards them meeting that goal. So the coaching approaches that I chose for my coaching experience was the first one was noticing and naming. So during the lesson, the teacher and coach focus on how the students are demonstrating their current understanding in relation to the identified learning targets. As we work with students, we will record student evidence that we will use in our planning conversations. So for this approach, the teacher and I set a goal and a focus, and we discussed how the students would show their understanding of that goal. We planned what the students would be doing during the time I came into her classroom to observe and coach. The second coaching approach that we chose was you pick four. And this one is the teacher identifies approximately four students who the coach will pay special attention to in order to collect student evidence. The coach keeps the learning targets in mind while collecting student evidence. This evidence is then used in our planning conversations. So for this approach, at first the teacher chose four of her high students that I would pay close attention to. But then after a coaching conference and coaching session, we decided to choose additional students for me to coach for different students. So we chose two low or incomplete students, which is on our campus is red group, one medium low or developing or yellow group, and one advanced high student, which is the blue group. So during the pre-conference, the teacher and I talked about what goal that they would be working on during the time I would be in there. She gave me an overview of her students' performance. We selected the coaching approaches that we thought would work best for us given the time allotted. And we discussed the goal that we would focus on during my observations and my coaching sessions. So the students would be working on addition and subtraction within 10 during the time that I would be in there. So at the beginning, during our pre-conference, she gave me her student data. She has 22 total students. And for addition and subtraction within 10, she had been working on it for a couple of days already. And the students, before I started the coaching, she had 6 advanced students, which was 27%. Proficient, she had 6, which was 27%. And both developing and incomplete, she had 5 students each, which was 23% of her class. So during my observation and coaching time, the students were in stations and small groups with the teacher. So I caught a little bit of the ending of her whole group on some days, and some days they were already in small groups. So the teacher had 3 stations in addition to her small group. And her stations were called Spiral Review, which they would be working on something that reviewed the lessons that they've been taught, which was addition and subtraction. Personalized learning, which is they're on their iPads and they work on an app that is tailored to their needs and their level. And machine learning, which is additional apps on the iPad that they will work on that is tailored to their specific needs. So during her small group, each group worked on addition and subtraction. However, the materials and the work that they were working on were differentiated for each group. The low groups, the incomplete and developing, the red and yellow, they worked on addition and subtraction within 5 instead of 10. The proficient group worked on numbers to make 10, and the high group worked on word problems. So during my observation and coaching time, I worked with the teacher and the students and made suggestions on what the students could do that would increase student achievement. The coaching approaches that I used, as I stated before, were noticing and naming, and you pick 4. We chose noticing and naming because the teacher had a great mixed level class. She had a little bit of highs, a little bit of high mediums, a little bit of lows, and a little bit of low. So she had a great mix, which made it a little bit better for noticing and naming. So here is a snippet. So after coaching, we discussed those strategies that she would put into place. She was very flexible and she immediately agreed that some of those changes could make a difference in her student achievement. So to increase student achievement during the whole group, the students used whiteboards to work problems with the teacher. Once they had the answer, the students would hold up the whiteboards for teachers to see. So I love that idea. The students they were drawing with her, they were writing with her, they were repeating the number sentence with her. They were working the problems, they were solving those problems and they were holding it up. She could see, okay, easily, you got it. I need you to maybe make my correction on this one. I loved it. During the spiral review stations, the students would work and solve problems on paper instead of dry erase. Dry erase pockets and turn it in when their station the time was up. And she could check for understanding. Once they turned their work in, she can go back and see who mastered the content. So after coaching student data, she gave them an assessment that had 5 problems on it. The problems were varied in different ways that they could add and subtract up to 10. So after the assessment at the end of my coaching days, advanced moved to 11, proficient went down, it was 5, development was 4, and incomplete went down to 2. So the difference was advanced, the difference was 25%, 23%, I'm sorry. Proficient the difference was 4%. Developing, the difference was 5%, and incomplete, the difference was 14%. And these are the differences from before we started. This is the assessment that she gave her students at the end. There are different problems. There are different ways to add and subtract within 10. They had visuals, they had number sentences, they had word problems, everything that they had been working on during the time that I was in there, whether it was whole group or during small group. So a few pros of student-teacher coaching. Like I said, I enjoyed working with Ms. Lipscomb. Her class was and their students were very engaged. They were participating. They were talking to me the whole time I was in there, showing me their work, asking me to come help them. Like I really enjoyed her class. Some pros are, like I said, increased student engagement and participation. They were actively listening, engaging, and participating. She differentiated her instruction during small groups. We targeted student outcomes. We focused on student achievement. The teacher was flexible with her instruction. And I got to see some of my students from last year, the progress that they are making in her class this year. The cons of student-centered coaching was some students' behaviors needed to be addressed. Like I said, during her spiral review station, they were on the carpet and a few of them were playing, so we decided to move them to the table so that she could easily see them working from her small group table. The biggest con was time constraints because I could only go in there during, my planning period. We had solar eclipse day. I was out 2 days sick. She was out 2 days sick, and we had to do this within the time that was allotted for us. I think that the biggest con was time constraints. Like I said, I enjoyed working with Miss Lipscomb. She was very, positive with this experience. This was a very positive experience for me as well, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.